Thank you for joining my session. I'm a registered psychotherapist qualifying in Ontario, and every day I'm trying to share some evidence-based strategies, questions that might help you to cope with challenges that you are experiencing. And today we will be speaking about highly achieving people who might be struggling with symptoms of exhaustion, burnout, and we will discuss what you can do and how you can support yourself using solution-focused brief therapy strategies and questions. So we are going to explore a world that often looks admirable from outside, but internally it can feel like a storm, and the hidden psychological struggle of high-performing individuals. And today's session is especially for those who are constantly climbing the ladder of success, but feel like they are losing their breath along the way, and those who, after every achievement, quietly ask themselves, what if it was just a luck? And those who see rest not as a necessary but a threat. And we will explore three main themes. First of them is why high-performing minds cannot relax, why it's difficult to take rest, why do you feel guilty if you are trying to do nothing or to take rest, and how external strength conflicts with internal exhaustion, and why success doesn't eliminate the feeling of inadequacy, and what you can do in order to change and to cope with these challenges. For high performers, success is not simply a goal, it becomes a biological necessity, almost like breathing. And over time, this need can evolve into something we call as toxic productivity. Toxic productivity is when a person ties their entire self-worth to their output, their projects, their achievements, even the number of unread emails in their inbox. And maybe you complete a task, you feel satisfied, but only for a very short period of time, and immediately your mind jumps to the next item on to-do list. So why can't the high-performing mind relax? The answer lies in the nervous system. For many high achievers, stillness is not perceived as something to relax, to rest. It can be perceived as a danger. And many of these people were once maybe reliable child who were able to perform, succeed, support everyone and everything. And over time, success becomes a kind of emotional insurance policy. And therefore, this belief system sounds like if I stay ahead, no one can catch me off guard, and if I always produce, I will be indispensable. And this keeps the nervous system in a constant state of hypervigilance. Let's look at the difference between healthy high performance and toxic productivity. In healthy performance, motivation comes from values, passion, and growth, whereas in toxic productivity, it comes from fear, inadequacy, and the need for external validation. And in healthy mindset, your self-worth exists independently of performance. And whereas in toxic productivity, your value is entirely tied to your output. And rest in a healthy system is something that you need. It's necessary for renewal, for refreshing. But in toxic productivity, a rest feels like guilt, like wasted time. And therefore, mistakes are seen as data for growth in healthy functioning. But in toxic productivity, they become threats to identity. And finally, the ability to say no exists in healthy performance. But in toxic productivity, there is a constant overcommitment and inability to say no. So many high performers ask, why does my mind get louder the moment I sit down to rest? This happens because sympathetic nervous system is stuck in flight or fight mode, and when productivity stops, the mind starts scanning for possible threats. Maybe you have thoughts like, I should check my emails, I need to prepare for Monday's meeting. And they are not just thoughts, they are attempts by your nervous system to maintain control and escape uncertainty. Because anything that's uncertain, or if in experiences that are difficult to maintain control, your mind can be experiencing them as a threat. Therefore, you might have high anxiety, and in order to decrease anxiety, you might be overperforming, overworking, and constantly trying to do your job and to be perfect. So let's move to the second topic, the conflict between external success and internal exhaustion. There is a phenomenon called high functioning anxiety, or it's also often called as quiet cracking. And unlike typical anxiety, where people may freeze or withdraw, people with high performing anxiety become hyperactive. They are always on time, they deliver perfect work, they appear organized and in control. But internally, they are running on fear of failure, fear of mistakes, fear of not being enough. And behind the scenes, there are sleepless nights, constant mental noise, and a level of exhaustion that even rest cannot fix. And the most dangerous part of it is that high performers often realize too late that they have reached their limit whenever they are having experiencing signs of burnout, or they are tied on such a level that it's very difficult to renew again. And because they believe I can solve anything by working harder, by doing more, and this belief masks the early signs of burnout. And research shows that many high performers secretly experience a loss of excitement, things that they used to enjoy that brought joy. They might be feeling empty. They might be feeling disproportional emotional reactions and small setbacks triggering intense frustration, and even small challenges or things, stressful things, might cause extreme anxiety, frustration, exhaustion. And it can be also difficult to concentrate. They might be having decision fatigue, and even simple choices become overwhelming. And physical symptoms may include jaw clenching, chronic pain, stomach issues, headaches. And we must also consider the role of the modern work environment. Today's workplace often demands more with fewer resources, and high performers are rewarded with more work simply because they perform well. And to this is the pressure of constant availability and AI-based systems, social media, and the nervous system receives a clear message. You are never safe and you're always being watched. As a result, the very individuals who are most valuable to organizations suddenly collapse or experience burnout. And now we arrive at the third topic, why success doesn't silence the feeling of inadequacy. Let me share a sentence that many high performers carry silently. One day everyone will realize how incompetent I actually am. And many overachievers might have these thoughts that they are not enough, they are not incompetent, they are afraid that people will find out their flaws or they might make mistakes. And this is the essence of imposter syndrome. Even if they are very successful, these thoughts can be constantly disturbing them, visiting them. And people attribute their achievements maybe to luck, to coincidence, or even deception rather than their own abilities. And it's especially fueled by rigid and self critical perfectionism. And this can be rooted in very strict upbringing or any negative experiences, criticism they had in their lives. And interestingly, as success increases, imposter feelings also increase. Not They are not decreasing because each success raises the fear and reduces the perceived margin for error. Therefore, let's look at some common thoughts that people with imposter syndrome might have. Maybe they have some thoughts such as, I was just at the right place at the right time. And this leads to an inability to internalize success, inability to see their own capabilities, resources. And maybe they have thoughts, if I don't work for 20 hours, I will be exposed, and this leads to burnout. They might have thoughts, the only praised me because they are kind, and this blocks growth and creates isolation, withdrawing from people. And the next thought people might have, that one mistake ruined everything, and this would create a constant sense of inadequacy, a sense of shame, and other uncomfortable feelings. And for high performers, success becomes their identity. Instead of saying, I'm a person who succeeds, they began to believe that I am my success. And this leads to even more overworking to attempt to maintain this level of success. And when that happens, even a small failure might feel like an existential crisis. And success becomes a mask, and the fear is that it will fall off. Now let's talk about solutions. In my clinical practice, I enjoy using solution-focused framework, particularly the diamond approach developed by Elliot Coney and Adam Farr. And unlike traditional therapies that focus on heavily on the problems, this approach focuses on possible solutions and the belief that everyone is capable of producing their own solutions, relying on their own capabilities, qualities, and resources that are available for them. And the first question we ask in therapy is that what do you want to achieve as a result of listening to me, speaking to me, what you like to be different? For instance, if a person came with burnout symptoms, exhaustion, we might ask if you were not feeling burnout symptoms, what you would like to feel instead, what you would like to be different, or if they want to decrease burnout symptoms. So, what they would like to experience instead, which version of them would they see? Maybe it's more balanced version who can balance work and other areas of their life. And instead of saying, I don't want to feel anxious, we ask, when anxiety is gone, what will be there in its place? What will be feeling it? Would it be a peace, a connection, a presence? And if this burnout, this pressure, this constant feeling of not enough began to resolve, what be the very first small sign in your daily life that tells you something is being different? Another key principle is that no problem exists at the same intensity for 24 hours a day. And even someone struggling deeply has had any moments when the struggles were less, burnout was less, or they were balancing their work life balance better, or they were feeling less exhausted. And what was happening during those moments? What was different? What did you do differently? And what does that say about your inner resources? Because the solutions already exist, at least in part, in that part of life within the person. And the only thing we need is to remember about those capabilities, resources, and we can use the same resources again for coping with the current problems. And if burnout has decreased for a while, what would be the very first small sign that it has decreased? What would you notice about yourself? This shift helps to focus your attention to solutions from focusing on the problems. And some people are saying, I would wake up feeling lighter. The others are saying, I would hear birds instead of emails. And this becomes concrete guides for change. Now, I want you to live with some strategies that you can try to help and to support yourself. Try to sit for 5 minutes every day without producing anything. And when your mind starts saying you are wasting time, respond with, I'm training my nervous system, and this is my most important task right now. And slowly you will teach your brain that sitting without doing anything is not something dangerous, or it's not the end of the world. And slowly it will be easier for you to relax and to learn to take rest. The second strategy is creating a file of objective achievements, your completed projects, messages of appreciation, maybe, or any sentences of appreciation that people told you. And when imposter feelings arise, or when your mind starts to talk about possible failures or that you are a failure, you can open these documents and to remind yourself about your successes, looking at the facts, not just at emotions. And also aiming for 80% perfection in certain tasks. Not everything requires 100%. This is essential for energy management so that you can leave some time for yourself to rest, to relax, and to refresh. And sharing on, and not just sharing your successes, but also sharing your struggles can help to break isolation, at least with people whom you trust and whom you value. Sometimes sharing with the challenges can help to feel better, to feel lighter, and to avoid burnout. So now let's talk about something high performers often forget. It's your resources, and it's very difficult. It can be very difficult to notice any positive things or resources that we have, especially for those people who are too self-critical, who are always criticizing themselves. And answering to these questions might help to realize about your own own resilience, own brilliance, and you didn't get here. This level of discipline, success, responsibility is not accident. And by asking, not instead of asking what's wrong with me, you can ask how have you managed to keep going even while feeling exhausted, burnout, because it tells something about you. Maybe it tells about your persistent, about your response, like you being responsible. Maybe it tells you don't give up easily. And these are not problems, but these are strengths and materials that you can use to overcome the current challenges if you are experiencing burnout signs. And now we are just going to redirect them so they work for you, not against you. And also considering exceptions. Even in the middle of burnout, there are some moments, maybe very brief, where the pressure softens. And what was the last time, even for 5 minutes, when you felt better, you didn't feel this constant pressure? And what was different at that moment? Maybe you were doing something slightly slower. Maybe you were with someone you trust, and you were sharing your challenges that helped you to feel lighter. Maybe you were not trying to prove anything or to prove yourself that you were. That moment matters, and because it proves something important, that this feeling is not permanent, and you already know how to access something different, how to help yourself to rest, to refresh, and to regain energy that you once had. So now let's build your preferred future, and I will ask you certain questions that would help you to describe what kind of change you want to see and how you would know that you are experiencing this change. How do you move through your day differently on that? If you already started to notice that something is changing and you are becoming the version of you that you want to become, maybe it's more. Maybe you want to be more energetic. Maybe you want to be stronger. Maybe you want to be able to balance your work life balance. And what would you be doing during those moments on that day? And what would other people notice around you that this is happening? Maybe you would feel calmer, maybe more present, maybe you will not be rushing as much. And now we are this resource talk becomes very practical because you don't need a completely new personality to get there. You already have a lot of resources that we often forget that we can use to achieve our outcome. And the same discipline you use to overwork is actually can help you. You can use it to protect your rest, and the same high standard that you hold for yourself, you can use it for sustaining sustainable energy. And that same awareness that makes you self-critical can also help you turn into self-observation without judgment. So we are not aware that we have a lot of factors and qualities that we can use to support ourselves. Change doesn't happen through pressure, it happens by small, repeated shifts. And each time when you are reminding yourself about these resources, each time when you are choosing to act as a preferred version of you, you are actually helping yourself to change, and the change is happening at that time. And you are not struggling because you're weak, you are struggling because the very qualities that made you successful have pushed into overdrive. And our goal is not to take away your drive, it's to bring it back into balance. And again, try to ask yourself, if things were just slightly better, what would you notice about yourself? Start from there, and this would help you to take small steps towards that version of you, and would give you some ideas on what can be done to get closer to the version of you that you want to become. I hope this session was helpful for you. If you think that it might benefit others, don't forget to share it with other people, and see you in the next videos. Take good care of yourself.